Hey, everybody, we are going to talk about everybody's favorite real estate stock, Opendoor, ticker symbol OPEN. I don't know if it's everybody's favorite. I don't even know if it's either of our favorites, Tyler, if I'm being totally honest, but it's a fun one to talk about. I think we could all agree on that. So before, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great topic of interest because it's one of those sort of businesses that you want to succeed, but then when you watch it operate and you go, I don't know if it's doing as great as I thought it would.
Yeah, and I think that's with me. Like, I love the concept of iBuying, right? I mean, in my lifetime, including investment properties, I've bought and sold, I think, 8 houses, and the process sucks. It's clunky when it works well. So I really would love to see Opendoor or any iBuyer succeed. I mean, there were four major iBuyers in the market. There was Opendoor, OfferPad, Zillow, and Redfin. Zillow went down, crashing in flames. There was actually a home in my immediate area that Zillow bought for roughly $500,000 in the middle of the pandemic, and they overpaid so much they ended up selling it back to the same person for about $400,000 about a year when they couldn't sell it 6 months later. So Zillow's kind of crashed down in flames. Redfin's, they smartly pulled the plug on it before it got too big. It's one of the best things I could say about Redfin's iBuying business is at least they didn't let it get out of control of Zillow's. Um, OfferPad is the other one, OPAD. They're a publicly traded company. They're about, I think, 1/5 the size of Opendoor. They're a much smaller player. So Opendoor really is, if they succeed, they could have a near monopoly on this space. So before we really dive into Opendoor, click subscribe to my channel and check out the link you see on your screen, fool.com/Frankel. Get a message from our sponsor, The Motley Fool. It's the best way to support this work we're doing. We'll keep them coming. So Opendoor is an interesting story in the past couple of years. They went from being kind of like one of the most hyped IPOs of the SPAC boom, if you remember that. There's a term you don't hear much anymore. They were the second Chamath Palihapitiya SPAC. They were IPO-B, if for for anyone who wants a little throwback there. And they were very, very hyped when they came public. They're credited for starting the 2020-2021 SPAC boom in a lot of ways, because they were the biggest one to go public in the early days of the pandemic. And the business just kind of really exploded. And it makes sense. Not only were mortgage rates 3% and real estate kind of going through the roof, but people couldn't. It was really tough to go look at homes and conduct an open house and do all the things you would normally do. So it made sense. The business was thriving. It ended up not only growing, doubling or more in certain periods year over year, but doing so profitably. Opendoor became profitable on a net income basis for some time. Um, 2022, we all know the real estate market completely did a 180. Mortgage rates went from 3% to 7%, and Opendoor pays interest when it carries homes on its balance sheet, so that hurt it. And not only that, but the number of existing homes for sale kind of plummeted, still very low. And the real estate market has been agonizingly slow for about 2.5 years now. And it's kind of not been a positive catalyst, to say the least, for companies like this. But Opendoor is making the best of a bad situation. I think that would be fair to say. They're setting pretty ambitious goals each quarter, and for the most part, they're beating them. In their second quarter letter to shareholders this year, they called for about $1.25 billion of revenue in the third quarter. They actually produced 1.4 billion. They called for a contribution margin, which is a very iBuying specific metric, in the 2.9 to 3.5% range. They did better than that. They produced 3.8%. So they're doing well in a tough market environment. The business is not generating positive net income. It's not even generating positive adjusted EBITDA in the current market environment. And I mean, my take is that they're doing a good job given what they have to work with right now. My question is whether this business can work unless you have a low interest environment. Tyler, what do you think about Opendoor these days?
I I go in 20 different directions whenever I think about this company because it's often it's so much a proxy for the kind of the real estate market in general, right? You kind of went to this idea of can they exist in a higher market interest rate environment? I maybe, but I think that would be contingent upon like us just kind of living in a higher interest rate environment for a long, long time. I mean, higher is a relative term here. We're in what I think I just checked mortgage rates are right around for, the average mortgage rate today is probably somewhere between like 6.1 to 6.3 if you have good credit. That's historically speaking, that's not absurd. It's certainly a lot higher than we saw for most of the 2010s, 20 and post pandemic. But we could also argue those were very abnormal times when it comes to interest rates too. So eh, I don't know if that's necessarily the case because we go on with this sort of environment for several years, everyone's just going to kind of get used to it, and like housing activity will start to normalize to that. There's this concept that people are in the golden handcuffs of low mortgages, which is fair, but eventually life changes happen and you're forced to move, and the wheels of the housing market start to turn again. um, Lower interest rates would help that. But in this coming year, I think if we want to kind of talk in a little bit on the shorter term basis, I am curious. I don't know if there's any sort of major catalysts that are going to drastically increase home sales activity in 2025. Like I said, inflation's a little bit stickier than we wanted. So like the rate of interest rate cuts is looking like it's going to get a little bit slower than we had thought maybe a few months ago. So that could maybe keep the brakes on a little bit longer. There's there's some concerns. I don't want to get I'm not going to make a political opinion on this, but there is a theory that if mass deportations were to happen, it would have a outsized impact on the construction industry, and that would obviously impact the housing industry as a whole. So, like, I know this is not necessarily related to Opendoor, but I think these are going to be the major factors that influence their business because they are a market taker. Right? They kind of have to play with what the housing market presents to them at any given moment. So I think it might be able to kind of squeeze out a few gains here and there if it can maybe take some market share, get some a little bit more marketing awareness, and that could help. And maybe taking a larger market share in a flat environment can improve on some of those profitability issues because this is a turnover business for them. I think we've mentioned it before when we do these videos where it's like, if you sell these houses really quickly and you don't have to hold it on the books for a long time and pay interest on the debt that you took out to buy the house, then, it can be more attractive. But every day that thing sits on the books, it basically eats at your profitability. And so if we were to see an improvement in asset turnover for the business, that I think would be the strongest sign that the company is doing better, almost more than anything else.
Yeah, and I mean, the reasons I'm on the sidelines with Opendoor are because I think one, it would need to get to a very big scale before it could be consistently profitable. I it's the same with a lot of these kind of businesses that have very low margins when they're working well. Think of Walmart or a grocery store, for example. The reason that Walmart can consistently thrive on a 2 to 3% net margin is because it has 25% or whatever of the retail sales in the United States. If Opendoor was, doing 20% of the home sales in the United States, there's no doubt in my mind it could consistently produce a 2 to 3% margin off that. If it had that level of scale, but we're a long way off from that. I think iBuying it's still very early in its evolution in how to get it right. You really need a Walmart model where there's like one big winner that has such efficiency and such scale and the benefits that come with that you can thrive on a consistent margin like that. Because like I said, This is a business that has a 7.5% gross margin. So the best net margin you could really hope for is like 2 to 3%. Now you're talking about houses, so 2 to 3% of the average house is not nothing. This is not like you're like like Walmart selling items for 10, 12, $13, whatever. So, but that's really why I'm on the sidelines, because I need to see the path to get to that scale. I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. The Motley Fool is a company that provides investing insight and stock recommendations for investors of all skill sets and risk levels. You all know how much I love researching new stocks and trying to find the next best investment. So I'm proud to partner with The Motley Fool to bring you 10 stock picks from the popular product Stock Advisor. Stock Advisor has beaten the market by nearly 5 times. So go to fool.com/Frankel to get your 10 stock picks now. The Motley Fool Stock Advisor returns are 767% as of July 5th, 2024, and are measured against the S&P 500 returns of 163% as of July 5th, 2024.